Welcome to episode 12 of the Silver Screen Scarehouse with Lisa and Linnie. I'm your host, Linnie, and with me, as always, is the luminous Miss Lisa Fremont.
Hey, y'all.
Y'all. When you come to the Scarehouse, we'll be reviewing 3 movies. We may not always agree, but as lifelong film fanatics, you'll get honest opinions from 2 different sides of the aisle, followed by an old-fashioned knives up, knives down final rating. This week, Lisa and I will be chatting about Dark Places, Citadel, and The Living, all of which are available on Netflix, Hulu, or various other VOD platforms. So let's kick off with Dark Places, the latest Gillian Flynn adaptation. Is it Gillian or Gillian?
Gillian, it's a hard G.
Yeah, I thought so. I didn't want to get that wrong. All right. A woman confronts traumatic childhood memories of the murder of her mother and 2 sisters when she investigates the possibility that her brother is innocent of the crime. And that particular description kind of leaves out about 15 other plot points in this movie. So, Lisa, I'm going to let you kick things off.
Okay. Dark Places is my favorite Gillian Flynn book. I am not ashamed to say I've read it 4 times. And so I was kind of like salivating over this movie. But then it became suspicious when they're like, they have an Oscar winner in it, but yet nobody's really talking about it. And just kind of, they just kind of let it be released without any kind of promotion. So, and why is this? Well, this is what's strange. The movie is actually, it hews very close to the book, yet somehow it is in no way engaging. You don't care about anybody, and the reveal is really not that exciting. So I think for me, the problem was they just grabbed Gillian Flynn's book, and they're like, let's just make this, because Gone Girl just had all that success, and this will be another Gone Girl. But they didn't put any love or passion into it, and that is what comes through. Yeah. And so it just kind of falls flat. And for the people who read the book, Charlize Theron and Corey Stoll could not be more visually different from the days. It's not even possible. It's not possible that you could pick anybody that looks different. I mean, I don't know. It'd be like if I was cast in a Marilyn Monroe movie. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's insane, and that is actually a huge part of it. So I don't know. I watched it a couple times, and it's just like a really, really, really high budget, beautiful looking, made for TV film.
Yeah, I have not read the book, and when I watched it, I didn't know if that was going to be better for me as a viewer or if I was going in at a detriment. I honestly don't know that it matters if you've read the book or not. I think having read the book it's always going to be worse for you because it's never going to match up to your expectations. But in this particular instance, it is such a bad movie anyway. Either way, you're kind of coming out on bottom. I spent the whole film incredibly frustrated with the main character, and this is a fine line between my issues with Gillian Flynn's books and the way it was portrayed in this film. I feel like she writes extremely unlikable women, and I kind of admire that she doesn't write women that are flouncy little rom-com women, because not every woman's like that. But in this case, it's so hard to cling to a main character that gives so little of a shit about anything. It's implied right away that she got her brother put in jail on faulty memories, and she knows as an adult that she's being given the opportunity to fix that, and the only reason she does it is for money. And for me, that was a big problem. And that, again, if that's in the book, I don't know if I would have felt differently about it having been reading it. Maybe if you have more time to get used to Libby as a character, you might understand the motivation more. In the movie, you're literally thrown in with a misanthropic, greedy, lazy Libby, and you're like, why? Why am I supposed to give two shits about this woman's journey? I don't. I found Amy in Gone Girl far more likable in book and film, and she's a sociopathic murderer. That's not a great sign. There are way too many plot points, which in a book can work because you have time to devote to it and you're taking it slowly and you can leave and come back. In a film, when you are literally throwing plot after plot after plot after plot at an audience, you can't keep up, and after a while, you just check out. There's too much going on. And again, you don't care about anyone because everybody's awful. There's almost no one that you can cling to as a likable character in this movie, except for maybe Corey Stoll. And even then, there's kind of that dissonance where you're never sure if you really want to bother caring about him. I didn't care about the whole murder club subplot. I found a lot of the implications about Satanism and the Native American community really troublesome. I mean, there's a lot to hate about it and not enough to balance that out. So it was just overall just a really unpleasant film watching experience for me.
Well, I think to answer your question now that I've heard your complaints is it would behoove you to read the book, because the problem with the movie is it's not very good at delineating between whether or not we're in 1985 or current times. Those of us who are old enough to remember the satanic panic that swept the nation, that was a thing.
Right.
And that's actually more where that satanic stuff is coming from, whereas in the movie it felt like they just were flippantly maybe, referencing like West Memphis 3.
That's exactly what I felt. And I felt like that was a major issue I had with it, was that it felt like in the beginning they were trying to, this was terrible, satanic panic was awful, and kind of trying to draw attention to that, but then they continue ahead and just perpetuate the same stereotypes that they were trying to negate in the beginning. So it ended up completely counteracting its own point. So that was a big issue for me.
Yeah, they just weren't good at, I guess, keeping all the narratives separate, which is because it's not a book. And no one is particularly likable, but that's actually what I like about this book, is that everybody is actually so complex that you have to kind of travel with them for a few chapters before you can decide whether or not you want to be sympathetic towards them.
Mm-hmm.
And Libby is hard to like. This is a book I've actually recommended this to quite a few people, and usually within the first few chapters they come back and tell me I don't like this person. But ultimately, they end up finishing it and they really like it. And I think if you've read a Gillian Flynn book, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not really sure initially how you feel about these people, but she will find a way somehow to get them to wiggle into your heart. And you can't do that on film, especially when immediately Charlize Theron is just a bitch. And as far as I can tell, she's just mad because they're making her wear a hat over her hair that she's clearly growing out from Mad Max.
Yeah. That was another thing. It's like, if you're commit one way or the other, they were trying to dress her down, and she's a woman that really is completely lacking in vanity, and I've always loved that about her. But whoever was doing the costuming and makeup on this movie could not commit one way or the other. So either let her be a dressed down person, like a dressed down woman that just doesn't give a shit, or let her go the other way and be Charlize Theron. But it's like, you can't have it both ways, and they did not know what they were doing. In a lot of instances, I felt like it's a in comparison to the plot issues, it's a paltry complaint, but the costuming, makeup, hair, and set design on this movie were atrocious. I was really bothered by it.
Not a paltry complaint. I think that's what a lot of the problems were, because the way the book is, it's one chapter is 1985, and one chapter is Libby right now. Mm-hmm. And, so it's back and forth. And so that's always really obvious. But the fact that the fucking 80s clothing has now come back around, it wasn't really obvious that when we were looking at Ben and Deandra, that maybe this was in the 80s, and that is when it was not okay, but it was acceptable to accuse, people of different cultures of being in the satanic thing and this, that, and the other thing. And Ben Day looked like a modern day hipster doofus with his beanie and his black shag haircut.
That was a huge problem. Like, I got so confused several times, and they cut back to Christina Hendricks plays their mom. But at one point I was like, is she old enough to have this many kids? What am I watching? I don't even know what's going on right now, because the clothing, and again, that may be the issue, is that because of our current fashion style and our inability to move forward past old trends, it all looked the same. I mean, everything looked the same. And I could not tell the difference visually. They had to clue me in narratively as to what time it was when the movie first started, until eventually I caught on and I was like, oh, so Chloe Grace Moretz is in the 80s. She's not, okay, all right, I kind of get this now.
And you're going to die, but they actually did not make her as dislikable, if that's a word, as she should have been. In the book, you want to kill her.
I kind of...
like, oh, you just want to...
I kind of suspected that. And that was another major issue I had with the film, having not read the book, is that when you meet her character again in modern day, I felt like that all came out of fucking nowhere. Like, the whole plot with her and the kid and the murdering, like, I was like, wait, what? Who is that? What's going on right now? And that was when I checked out. Like, I don't care anymore. God, whatever, man. Like, I felt like you need an outline to follow along the movie. It was really frustrating. So frustrating.
So, then, you had asked before we started recording, yes, read the book.
Yeah.
Knowing the outcome will not ruin it, because I know that you're like me, and I knew who the killer was at the beginning of the book, but in the book, the way, it unfolds, it's good. Whereas here, it was treated like, you're like, wait, who's that guy?
Well, see, in the movie, that's the other thing in the movie, is that, and I don't, I blame my law degree, I blame my history of obsession with cop shows. I do tend to pick things out pretty quickly. But in this case, in the movie, I felt like they gave the plot away right away, because they're mentioning a serial killer consistently throughout the film that does not relate in any tangible way to anything else going on. So you're like, well, obviously that's what happened. You would not be mentioning the Angel of Death serial killer over and over and over again if that does not somehow play into the end of this film. Why are you telling me about this if it's not relevant? So when it gets to that end and you get to the supposed twist, I was just annoyed. Like, am I supposed to be shocked? Was this supposed to be shocking? I'm just mad now. I'm just more angry than I was before.
Yeah, and also you had complained that Patty Day, you didn't find her to be anyone you care about because she chose to let this happen. And again, if you'd read the book, it's not even a twist so much as it's coming, but for her to know her internal dialogue over making these choices, you don't hate her, and it's actually really heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I could absolutely see that. She was, for a portion of the film, the one character I felt for. But then when that comes at the end, and it seems more like an afterthought in the terms of the movie, and obviously it's not in the book, I was just annoyed. And this is a perfect example of a screenwriter adapting a book and leaving everything in. Like, Gillian Flynn got all the attention she got for the Gone Girl script because she took her own story and she was able to remove the things that needed to be removed, leave the things that were important, and sort it out and not be attached to any one thing. But it feels like that the script writer for this book, or this film, was like, well, I can't cut any of this. This is all brilliant. I'm going to leave it all in. And just, I feel like they had a 300-page shooting script. And when it came to editing, that nobody knew what to cut out either. So instead, we get this incoherent film when maybe if Gillian had written the script, it might be better. I don't know.
Well, that's what I wonder why they couldn't just cool their heels for a minute and wait for her to have the availability, because it's a really great story. And
yeah,
they ruined it. And that's, if you're not a reader, anybody listening, if you're not a reader, I guess maybe watch the movie, or you could watch something else you're going to like instead of this. But if you're a reader, read this book. It is it is good. And the way that the Day family is, they're that family that we all knew that maybe, all 5 sisters ended up wearing the same dress because they had no money,
Right.
The hand-me-downs went through each generation, and they're on a farm, and she has to keep selling everything, and they're redheads. In the book, they're redheads. They're not Amazonian, gorgeous, blonde people, and Corey Stoll. Okay?
Oh, I mean, I love Corey Stoll, but he, for one...
he was not meant for that. That's all. There's somebody more diminutive needed to be in that role. That's why you care.
Yeah, it was interesting to me that they picked him at all because, first of all, the kid they had playing him as a teenager could not have looked more different from grown-ass Corey Stoll. And second, for being, Corey Stoll usually plays very quiet, strong characters, but he does have this very masculine, overpowering energy to him that I maybe this is just me, and this is why I've always liked him. But I didn't feel like that role called for that. Like, I feel like it needed somebody more unassuming.
Absolutely. I feel like you understood what they were missing. This was really disappointing, and my biggest complaint from day one about this, and I was right, unfortunately, and maybe it's the hairstylist in me, but in the book, Miss Libby is only 4 foot 10 inches, and she has red hair, but she dyes it blonde, like white blonde, so when the red roots are growing in, it looks like her scalp is bleeding, and she likes that.
That's an interesting touch.
Yeah. And I don't know why we couldn't have just done that to Charlize. I mean, hello. Why did she win the Oscar? Because she went full ugly. So I don't know why we couldn't have just done that.
Yeah, I mean, there were certainly ways to have made her a more compelling character, if not likable, compelling, and she was not compelling at all. There was no depth, no layer, nothing. She was just an unlikable human being that you could not remotely sympathize with. So
they all were. So we should stop talking about it.
Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious that Dark Places, the film, gets 2 gaping knives into a chest cavity of whoever adapted this into a script. And I will read the book. It will get bumped up to my list now, to the top of my list.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so it'll be the next book I read, I promise. All right, next up is The Living, which is now on Netflix.
Living. A man hires an ex-con to kill his sister's abusive husband, but the desperate act sets into motion a shocking series of events in this intense indie drama. Now, Miss Linnie, you have been losing your mind over this movie for the last week.
I have, and every time I try to talk about it, I get all weepy, so I'm going to try to control that. I'm reviewing it on the site in a few weeks. I will say it's one of my few 5-star reviews of this year. I'm putting that out there. Obviously, I am a little bit in love with this movie. I put it on. It was supposed to be background noise because I have a raging lady boner for Fran Kranz. Like, I can't even explain to you. You probably know him as the stoner in Cabin in the Woods, but he was on Dollhouse. I love this guy, which is the only reason I put it on. And it was supposed to be background noise, and then I could not take my eyes off it. For me, the reason this movie resonated so much is because I watch a lot of revenge films, and it is very rare that a revenge film shows the true human cost of revenge. Usually it's glossy like a Tarantino movie, or, you see it on nighttime soaps like the ABC drama Revenge, and it's pretty and funny, and that's not reality. Revenge is awful, and it will ruin your life, and it will ruin the lives of those around you. And that's what this movie just nailed for me, is that you make that decision to seek revenge, but you don't think through the human cost of it. And so there's that element with the brother, Kenny Wormald, who I only know from the Footloose remake. So there's that plot of him hiring this terrifying ex-con, But then the other half of the film, which really just ripped me to shreds, is when you come into the film, thank goodness we don't have to see the actual abuse happen, but it's the morning after, and we know that this husband has gotten blackout drunk and beaten the hell out of his wife, and she's hiding at her parents' or her mom's house. And the film, from their perspective, is the wife deciding if she can forgive him, if she wants to forgive him, if he deserves to be forgiven, if they can move forward with their marriage. I don't remember them talking about if it's ever happened before. It's not really relevant whether it has or not because of how bad it was this time. You are left with that question of whether or not it matters. There is that fear that you kind of can't trust Friend's character because it always seems like he's hiding something. And as these two plots are kind of just hurtling towards each other, I was just overcome with terror. Like, you know what's coming and you know how inevitable it is, but it's still so devastating when it happens. And I have not been this affected by a movie in a really long time. I think the acting was really good. It also stars Joelle Carter, who I love on Justified. I am blocking now on the actress from House of the Devil. It's Jocelyn something. I'm blocking. Yeah, the brunette from House of the Devil. I mean, she carried the whole movie. Jocelyn Donahue, yeah. So, and there's a really interesting dynamic between the mother and daughter. It's just, to me, it's one of those movies that when you watch a million revenge movies, so few of them just really nail it. And that's what The Living was for me.
Okay. Maybe it got spoken up too highly for me. The impression I had gotten from both you and the beautiful Joy on Twitter was that I was preparing for a Martyrs level film experience, and it wasn't for me. But maybe that's just because I don't know. I feel really bad saying this to you, but to me, it felt like a run-of-the-mill, dramatic, slow-paced, independent drama. Like, I feel like every year you're subjected to one of these, and it has all the little awards that it got at every festival, and if you don't like it, then you're somehow not highbrow enough.
I would not accuse you of that at all. I can absolutely see how you would see it that way. I don't know how to. Sorry, I'm sure that all of that crunching that just happened is going to show up. I don't really know how to explain the visceral reaction I had to it. I feel like either you're going to react that way or you're not. I can absolutely see how it might appear like something you would see on television, or maybe just something you would see like on a B night at a festival. But it was that kind of just visceral terror I felt as it came to that conclusion. And I'm loath to give everything away, but there's just this moment at the end, and it's all to do with the acting. But there's just this moment in Jocelyn Donahue's eyes where you just see her just give up. And it was just such a powerful moment to me. I think this is one of those movies that you're going to approach with all of your own life experiences too. I think that might have something to do with it.
That's what I didn't know how to say tactfully.
Yeah.
I thankfully don't have a lot of experience with this, and I can't help but feel like maybe that was part of my issue. It's a good film. It's well written. I actually looked up the other films that this writer-director did, because he has another one that was written and directed by him, Jack Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
He did this. The acting was, everybody was perfect. I understood where everyone was coming from. Everyone had a flaw. So you had to, kind of Russell with how he felt about everyone. I also had a really hard time not getting irritated with the young lady and how she was behaving with Molly.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand that. That's not my place to judge it. So I just thought, I don't understand what she's doing. I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't understand putting him through these, awkward dates if you know you're going to end up forgiving him, which, that's each person's choice. And I don't know. The end was sad, but it's coming. And I was not at all surprised by choices that were made. None of them. Nothing was surprising. Like, it was a paint-by-numbers, independent drama. And the only reason I wasn't mad at it is because everybody involved did such a good job.
It is. It is really well acted. Yeah, I absolutely see what you're saying. Again, I do think it's a lot of your personal experiences, but I also think that abuse is such a complicated thing to put to film. And I think a lot of times that it's so black and white. You have these dramas with Jennifer Lopez or, whatever, who these movies come out and, a woman has an abusive husband and she kicks him out or she leaves or, she learns she takes karate and learns how to kick his ass. And that's all well and fine. I like those movies. But the reality in the real world is that spousal abuse, when you are in a marriage, in a relationship where you can't just pack up and leave, is so much more complicated, especially when you're a woman that has nowhere else to go. And in the film, I feel like the relationship she has with her mother makes that adds that level of complication, because it's kind of implied that, well, they say outright that she had her extremely young and she's trying to prevent her from making the same mistakes. But obviously Molly is still young enough that she's playing this rebellious bullshit card where, well, if my mother wants me to do one thing, I'm going to do the other, to her own detriment, whether or not. And so I think that, that's one element that made it really powerful for me. But then just actually watching the struggle of a woman that is dealing with that, do I give him a second chance? Do I stay? Do I make him leave? Is this the man I want to be with? I thought that was really interesting. And it didn't condescend. It didn't look down on her for being torn apart by these decisions. Even when you feel like she's just screwing with him and she's intending to kick him out anyway, it just had that layer to me that it's something that you don't see typically in movies. Yeah. So
I did like that it was not black and white, because I do hate that when it comes to any kind of complications that arise in a marriage. Movies always make it this or that, and that's not how life works. Right. So I did actually really respect and appreciate that, but at the same time, I just felt like how long they could have explored it forever, indefinitely. So the brother and his plot, I felt like he was actually only doing that because his mother took every chance she could to emasculate him.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Why was she doing that? She's driving me up a wall, and this poor kid. I understand. I completely agree with what you said at the beginning with it being revenge, and there's actual consequences to it. And I don't think that anything is not complicated when it comes to abuse. So it was interesting to watch all of that. But just knowing where it was going to end, I just kind of felt like I was being put through the paces at times.
No, totally fair. I get it. So, obviously, I give The Living a massive knife up, but
I give it a knife down.
Fair.
Sorry.
No, totally fair. Totally fair. This is why we do this, Lisa. All right. Okay. So, last up tonight is a movie that I watched because we had the pleasure of interviewing the director, who was a delight. Our last movie tonight is Citadel. An agoraphobic widower receives help from a rogue priest when the same hooded predators who slaughtered his wife abduct his infant daughter. Lisa, go for it.
Okay. This is a hoodie horror, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, I know that is now. This was interesting. I'm a huge fan of hoodie horror because that's usually just a covert name for home invasion. So I was sold immediately, and it was actually so much smarter and more emotionally invested than just that. And I enjoy the idea of this guy being agoraphobic because he has to leave. He has a baby that he has to take places. So when you add that in conjunction with being, terrorized by this group of, I don't know what they are, but they're wearing hoodies. It's really, really interesting, and I found it to be really suspenseful, and I felt for this kid. And then that priest comes in, and you're like, why are you such a jerk? But I liked him. I liked him even though he was a jerk. And it just, the way it looked and the way it felt, like it brought me into it. Like I felt kind of cold, and everything was really creepy. And that guy did such a good job of acting like he was terrified to just, open the front door. It really worked for me. I don't understand exactly what these children are or were, but I don't think I care. I don't think I need to know.
Yeah, that was interesting to me that he I think Kieran wrote the script too. It's never explained what these kids are. I mean, they're terrifying, and that's really all that's relevant. I mean, you really only get a good look at them a handful of times throughout the film. It's more about that increasing sense of dread that you feel. You feel hit the main character's fear. It's not just about these seemingly supernatural entities that have killed his wife and made him this agoraphobe. But it is that fear of just leaving his apartment because of the terrors outside. So it's really interesting to watch those competing fears working against each other. And, it was a really low budget movie, but it was so beautiful that you couldn't tell. And I love low budget film that looks beautiful. Like that's a real skill set to have. It's a really strange, really dark movie, and hoodie horror tends to be very black and white. It's just usually about the fear that the upper middle class of the UK have of the struggling for a word.
The lower class.
Well, it's not even just the lower class, but the troublesome element of teenagers that loiter around. And actually Simon Pegg does this a lot in his movies, which is funny. In both The World's End and Hot Fuzz, they address the issue, and that is it. It's it's a certain age group dealing with a very different younger age group that are trying to push them out. But Citadel takes that and kind of turns it on its head, where our main character is also not an older guy. He's a young guy, but he has a kid that he has to protect, and he's dealing with kids that are not that much older than his own, apparently. I mean, again, we don't really know what they are, but they look to be children. So it's just an interesting spin on something that's kind of become a very specific formula for considering the genre is not that old. So there's so much about Citadel that's so cool that it does not surprise me at all that Scott Derrickson approached him to take over for Sinister 2. Because he definitely seems like somebody that gets how terrifying kids are, because they are.
I kept thinking that the whole time, how it totally made... Like, I'm actually more excited about Sinister 2, knowing what this guy does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, and it was low budget, but it didn't look low budget. And also, I love it if something scares me. And there was no gore, there was no blood, it was just scary because it's fucking scary.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that. And that little kid ruled the world. He was creepy.
The blind kid or the
Yeah, the blind
yeah.
kid. I liked him. I mean, he was creepy. I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, he was great. There's the scene right at the end, where they're walking out and he's saying just keep walking, just keep walking. I was so invested in that moment. It
I
was
know.
like I felt like I was holding my breath in that moment along with them. It's like, and that's rare these days with horror that you get that invested in a film. So I was nothing but impressed with this movie.
It was great. I'm totally with you. That last moment, I was like, oh my god, are they gonna make it? Oh my god.
Yeah.
So upset
And it doesn't
for
help that,
them.
I mean, this whole time, like this whole final scene, these last 10 minutes, he's carrying an infant. Like, you don't get any more vulnerable than that. I mean, this guy who's terrified of being outside, he's got a blind kid on his hand and an infant in his arm, and it's like, dude, like, could you be any more vulnerable right now? Like, I think I'm gonna throw up. I think I almost did throw up. I just
Well, nothing to. And he hasn't really proven himself to be, a superhero. So
no, that's exactly it. You know, he's broken. He is not an invulnerable character, which makes him even more sympathetic. I mean, you can't help but be rooting for him because of how much he's gone through. Like, just super super impressive movie.
it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. So if you have not seen Citadel, see Citadel because obviously we both give it 2 knives up. Yes. All right. Thank you, Darklings, for joining us for a lively episode 12 of the Silver Screen Scarehouse. If you'd like to chat with us about any of the movies we reviewed today, you can find Lisa on Twitter.
I'm at LCFREMONT.
Or you can find me on Twitter. I am at Linnie Loohoo, LINNIE LOOWHO. If you have a movie you'd like for us to queue up in the Scarehouse, drop us a comment below or let us know on Twitter. Stay stabby until next time.